We're here at GIST 2023 with Shane Barney, Chief Information Security Officer at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Shane, thank you for joining us.
Oh, happy to be here.
So we're talking about data-driven strategies here, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on where has your agency made headway in implementing data-driven strategies to optimize operations?
As a Chief Information Security Officer, obviously my focus is security, and a lot of people don't realize how critical taking a data-driven approach is to security. It starts with the data, it ends with the data, so that's where you should be focused. So when I first started as Deputy CISO and eventually the CISO, the approach, we kind of changed the way we thought about how we implement security practices and procedures based on a data-driven design. And this drove a lot of our decision making. It's how we prioritize, how we purchase tools, or how we go about doing protections, because we start at that data layer. With that data in mind in approach, we also looked. That's how we got ourselves into automation, because the data USCIS collects is overwhelming, and a lot of it. So there's no way human beings could ever possibly get in front of that. So taking that sort of data-driven mindset helped us streamline the overall security operations for us. And it enabled us to do things we never could do before, to monitor such a vast cloud infrastructure with literally a handful of people and do it successfully. It got to the point where we were able to get rid of our entire tier 1 of our SOC because I no longer needed people to stare at screens. When the pandemic hit and everybody had to go home, basically, a lot of the SOC operations suffered because they were used to being in a big room with lots of monitors and lots of stuff going on. Well, I don't need that. I just don't. That data-driven design that optimized a lot of our response capabilities in our incident as well as our monitoring and alerting. And in fact, now we're getting to the point where we actually have stopped even doing the actual responses and we automate that. So yeah, we know about something that happened, but it's already been dealt with, handled, and we're only getting a notification that the event's over and go about your day. Over in milliseconds in reality. So that data-driven design in terms of how we has been critical for us, and it's going to continue to be so.
And then talk a little bit more specifically about how has data-driven strategies strengthened security itself?
So, and that is the crux of it, because that's how you strengthen security. And I think that's probably what a lot of people miss. The idea of data-driven design was kind of a buzzy word for a bit, and people just kind of threw it out there, not realizing what it meant. And so for us, we took it to mean that if we looked at what we do as an operation, and we started looking at how we go about doing that. And that drove a lot of interesting questions. And one of the things that we've noticed especially within security operations, is how stovepiped operations are. When you start taking it as a data-driven design, you're like, well, wait a second. The data that you're using for risk management and for governance is also required in the SOC. Why are we stovepiping this when the reality is that this is actually one big collection? So that's actually what we did. When we talk about SOAR, for example, which tends to focus only on the Security Operations Center, that's not what we did. Because of the data approach we were looking at, we look at security automation. We look at how we overall envision that. And now, one of the big things we're going to do this year is pull away from basically all the big vendors that are out there who are providing SOAR products, because they're not meeting what the next generation needs. The stuff that I'm seeing today is not optimized for success. It's modularized. What they're doing is they're deploying these like no-code, low-code solutions, which, yeah, that's fine for the masses, but that doesn't meet mission-specific requirements based on the data part of it. And that's where it's failing, and it's failing us. So starting this time next year, we were actually going to build a framework-based approach where we are going to build our own. And where it's going to be open source based, it's going to be API driven, flexible, it'll be able to expand and contract as we need it to do. We'll build in the AI and MI as we need it, not as the vendors think we need it. And it's not that I have anything against the vendor community itself. I think they're responding to the markets. What they don't realize is they're not responding to the threat environment. And that disconnect is a critical one that needs to be taken into consideration, and they're not doing it. And it's unfortunate because we started out, we were one of the first federal agencies to get in the automation game, and now I'm looking at it, we're ready to back out because the changes that I'm seeing on the market side are just not matching up with the threat landscapes.
And I know we've talked about zero trust in the past, so how do you see this sort of new trajectory you're talking about?
Oh, I think it is the zero trust trajectory.
So talk about that
because
a little.
You look at the threat landscape, threat landscapes are unreal fluid. I mean, from the time I started this interview to the time I stopped, I'm guaranteed some threat changed. how can we expect our security operations and the way we do things to stay static or even checkbox based? And so they've got to mirror that fluidity, that's the right word. And they've got to make sure that we can continue to do that. It's got to be dynamic. And if you lock yourself into a no-code, low-code solution, you're literally locked in. You're limited in what you can and cannot do. If you have to introduce a new product and that product's not supported by your SOAR, what do you do? So you suddenly find yourself cramping your style in a sense. And zero trust, what zero trust is all about is recognizing the importance of the data first, because it's really what you do, really. Because you start with the data and decide how you're going to secure it and build upwards. Well, when you do that, you're also recognizing how how much that changes. And if you don't understand that, you probably got to go back and look, because I guarantee you it's changed since you last looked at it. And so our implementation of zero trust is tied to the hip of us changing the way we do automation. It has to change. The old days of a lot of these vendors, I hate to keep saying the vendors like they're evil. I don't think they are at all. But the way that these things are being packaged, they're very, very playbooky. Checkboxes almost. They're electronic checkboxes, which is better, but not by much. I need the ability to modularize that. I need to be able to pull that all apart, and I need to be able to do it on the fly. I have worked enough major incidences in my career to know better. There is not one playbook fits all. And so what I need though is that my development team, who I have in my SOC at all times, 24/7, 365, if I'm in the middle of an incident, I need my SOAR tool to do something that it's not doing today, I want them to build it and release it. And I want them to do it in 5 minutes. I don't get that from the vendor community right now. The low-code, no-code solution is not a solution.
Well, Shane, Barney, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing some of your insights with us.
Thank you very much.